Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. This is the story of how the president of our local HOA tried to force her way onto my property, assaulted me when I refused, then called the cops on me, and how it all spectacularly backfired on her. My wife and I bought our dream home about 2 years ago. It's a beautiful colonial-style house with a big yard, perfect for our 2 German shepherds. The property sits right on the border of an upscale planned community, but importantly, our lot isn't part of their HOA. We specifically chose this spot because we wanted the nice neighborhood without dealing with restrictive HOA rules. Everything was peaceful for the first year. We renovated the kitchen, planted a garden, and got to know some of our neighbors. Then last spring, the HOA elected a new president. Let's call her Karen, because of course that's her name. From day one, she seemed to take personal offense that our property existed outside her jurisdiction. It started with friendly suggestions about our yard maintenance. Karen would stop by uninvited to inform us that our grass was too long, or our garden beds needed more mulch, or our porch lights weren't matching the community aesthetic. Each time, I politely reminded her that we weren't part of the HOA and didn't need to follow their guidelines. "Oh, but don't you want your property to look nice?" she'd say with that condescending smile. "We have standards in this neighborhood." I always replied the same way. "We maintain our property to our own standards, thanks." Things escalated when we decided to build a workshop in our backyard. We got all the proper permits from the city and started construction. The very next day, Karen marched onto our property with a clipboard demanding to see our HOA approval paperwork. "Karen," I said firmly, "you know we're not part of your HOA. We don't need your approval." She turned red in the face. "This eyesore will be visible from HOA properties. You can't just build whatever you want." "Actually, yes we can," I replied. "As long as we follow city codes, which we are." She stormed off, but that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few weeks, we received multiple threatening letters on HOA letterhead demanding we cease construction and pay fines for unauthorized building. I kept them all in a folder just in case. The real drama started last weekend. I was in the backyard with my dogs when I heard the gate open. Karen had let herself onto our property and was strutting around with her clipboard again, taking photos of our workshop. "Karen, you're trespassing," I called out. "Please leave immediately." "I have every right to document violations," she snapped back. "No, you absolutely don't. This is private property and you're not welcome here. Leave now or I'm calling the police." She marched up to me, getting right in my face. "Listen here, you can't just ignore HOA rules because you think you're special. This whole attitude of yours is bringing down property values." "Final warning," I said calmly. "Leave my property now." That's when she completely lost it. She reached up and slapped me across the face, hard enough to leave a mark. I was so shocked I just stood there for a moment. Then I pulled out my phone to call the police. Karen's eyes went wide when she realized what she'd done. She practically sprinted to her own house next door. I was on the phone with 911 when I heard her screaming from her front porch. "Help! Police! He's threatening me! I need help immediately!" Turns out she was calling 911 too, spinning some crazy story about me threatening her and trying to assault her on HOA property. Within minutes, 3 police cars came screaming up with lights flashing. Karen was putting on quite a show, crying and pointing at me dramatically, but I had an ace up my sleeve. Or rather, several aces. First, I had a doorbell camera and security cameras covering my backyard. They caught the whole incident in crystal clear HD Karen trespassing, getting in my face and slapping me unprovoked. Second, I had a file full of documentation showing that our property wasn't part of the HOA, along with all the threatening letters she'd sent. And third, my dogs had been quietly recording the whole thing. See, I'd trained them to wear GoPro cameras when we're outside because we'd had problems with another neighbor's aggressive dog before. I wanted evidence in case anything happened. The cameras caught perfect footage of Karen's assault from ground level. The police separated us and took our statements. Karen spun this wild tale about me threatening her and trying to prevent her from doing her HOA duties. She claimed I had grabbed her arm, I hadn't touched her, and that she slapped me in self-defense. The real justice came about a month ago, when Karen tried to run for the board of her new condo association. She thought she could start fresh and regain some power. During her campaign speech at their annual meeting, she started ranting about how she'd clean up the neighborhood and enforce strict rules. That's when one of the residents stood up and played my security video on their phone, the one showing Karen trespassing and slapping me. Apparently, the whole room went silent. Karen tried to claim the video was doctored, but another resident, who turned out to be a retired judge, stood up and read from court documents detailing her guilty plea in civil judgment. Karen stormed out of the meeting screaming about how everyone was against her. She tried to withdraw from the election, but it was too late. She got exactly 0 votes. Even she didn't vote for herself because she left before voting started. But here's where it gets even better. Remember those anger management classes Karen had to take as part of her probation? Well, my lawyer heard from the DA's office that she failed to complete them. She only went to 2 sessions before deciding she didn't need anger management and quit going. The judge wasn't amused. Karen got hauled back into court for violating probation. This time, the judge wasn't so lenient. They extended her probation by another year and added 100 hours of community service, specifically working at the city's property records office filing HOA documents. The irony is just chef's kiss asterisk. Meanwhile, things have actually improved a lot in our neighborhood. The new HOA board is running things completely differently. They invited all the non-HOA property owners in the area, there are 5 of us, to a meeting to discuss ways we could all work together while respecting property rights. The new president, a retired business lawyer, actually apologized to us all and admitted the HOA had been overstepping for years. They've implemented new training for board members about property rights and jurisdictional boundaries. They even asked me to speak at one of their meetings about my experience. I took them up on it and brought my dogs with their GoPros. The whole room cracked up when I demonstrated how the cameras worked. Several people asked about getting similar security setups. I ended up starting a neighborhood watch program where we share security tips and help each other set up camera systems. The workshop that started all this drama, it's finished now and looks great. Some of the HOA members who originally complained have actually asked if they could hire me to build similar ones for them. The HOA changed their rules to allow workshops and other structures as long as they meet basic safety codes. My lawyer tells me Karen has been trying to get the civil judgment reduced, claiming financial hardship. But during the hearing, evidence came out that she had been embezzling from the HOA's maintenance fund during her time as president. The forensic audit showed she'd taken almost $30,000 over 2 years. The HOA is now suing her separately for the stolen funds. Several former board members came forward admitting they had noticed discrepancies but were afraid to speak up because Karen had dirt on them about their own property violations. The whole thing has turned into a massive scandal. Karen's now facing potential criminal charges for the embezzlement. Her lawyer quit after she tried to claim he had advised her it was legal to borrow from the HOA funds. She's representing herself now, which is going about as well as you'd expect. The local paper did a story about the whole saga, focusing on HOA oversight and accountability. They interviewed several experts who said HOAs often overstep their authority because there's not enough regulation of their powers. The article used my case as an example of how things can go wrong when HOA boards aren't properly overseen. Some good has come from all this drama, though. The City Council is now working on new regulations for HOAs, including mandatory training for board members about legal boundaries and financial management. They're also creating an oversight committee to handle complaints about HOA overreach. My security camera footage is actually being used in their training materials as an example of what not to do as an HOA board member. They've edited out faces and personal info, but it's pretty surreal seeing my backyard incident being used to train people. Remember those threatening letters Karen sent about our workshop? Turns out she had been sending similar letters to dozens of non-HOA homeowners in the area, trying to bully them into following HOA rules. Several of them have now filed their own lawsuits after learning about my successful case. "Officers," I said calmly, "I have video evidence of the entire incident from multiple angles. Would you like to see it?" Karen's face went pale. The officers reviewed the footage right there on my phone. They could clearly see Karen trespassing, me asking her to leave multiple times, and her assaulting me. They also looked at my property documents proving we weren't part of the HOA. One of the officers turned to Karen. "Ma'am, you've committed criminal trespass and assault. You also made a false police report. Please turn around and put your hands behind your back." But I'm the HOA president," she sputtered. "He's the one breaking the rules." "Ma'am, your HOA has no authority here," the officer explained as he cuffed her. "This is private property and you attacked the legal owner." They led Karen away in handcuffs as she alternated between crying and threatening to sue everyone. My wife had come home during all this and caught the end of the show. She couldn't believe what had happened. The next day, we filed for a restraining order and contacted a lawyer. Turns out Karen had a history of similar behavior with other non-HOA properties bordering their community. Our lawyer was practically gleeful about the case. Multiple videos of assault and trespassing, documented harassment, false police report. "This is a slam dunk," he said. "We're going to make an example of her." We filed both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit. Karen tried to claim she was just doing her job as HOA president, but that fell apart quickly when our lawyer deposed other board members. Apparently, they had specifically told her to leave us alone because they knew we weren't under their jurisdiction. The criminal case was handled first. Karen ended up pleading guilty to assault and making a false police report. She got probation and had to take anger management classes. She was also forced to resign as HOA president. The civil case was even more satisfying. We sued for harassment, emotional distress, and punitive damages. Karen's lawyer tried to get us to settle for $5,000. We refused. When the case went to court, the judge was particularly interested in the pattern of harassment shown in Karen's letters and our video evidence. In the end, the judge awarded us $25,000 in damages plus legal fees. They also made the HOA add a specific clause to their bylaws stating they have zero authority over non-HOA properties, with steep fines for board members who violate this rule. Karen had to sell her house and move away. Apparently, she couldn't handle the shame of everyone in the neighborhood knowing what she'd done. The new HOA board sent us a formal apology and promised to respect our property rights going forward. These days, things are peaceful again. We finished our workshop without any more drama. The new HOA president is actually a reasonable person who understands boundaries. Sometimes when I'm working in the backyard, I look at the security cameras and smile, remembering how they brought down the HOA Karen who thought she could rule the world. My wife says I should take down the cameras now that Karen's gone, but I think I'll keep them up. You never know when the next power-tripping HOA president might come along. Better to be prepared. The dogs still wear their GoPros too. They've become neighborhood celebrities. People call them the K9 Patrol. Several neighbors have even asked where they can get cameras for their own dogs. I guess some good things came out of this crazy situation after all. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions, yes, I still have all the footage. No, I can't share it for legal reasons. The dogs are very proud of their role in dispensing justice. Karen did try to appeal the civil judgment, but got shut down hard by the judge. I'll post an update if anything else interesting happens. Update. It's been 6 months since my original post about the HOA Karen who assaulted me and called the cops when I wouldn't let her trespass. A lot has happened since then, and you wouldn't believe how karma came back to bite her even harder. First, remember how Karen had to sell her house and move away? Well, turns out she didn't move far enough. She bought a condo in a neighboring development about 2 miles away and started telling everyone there that she was forced out of her old home by corrupt HOA politics. She conveniently left out the part about assaulting me and making false police reports, but her past caught up with her pretty quickly. One of my neighbors has a sister who lives in that condo complex. Word got around about what really happened, complete with someone sharing clips from my security footage on the local community Facebook page. Karen apparently had a meltdown at their community pool when people started calling her the slapper and keeping their distance. My dogs have become minor celebrities in the neighborhood. People stop us on walks to take pictures with them wearing their GoPros. One local news station even did a feel-good story about the guard dog photographers who helped take down a corrupt HOA president. We've started a local homeowners' rights group that meets monthly to discuss property issues and share advice about dealing with aggressive HOAs. Several real estate lawyers volunteer their time to answer questions. The group has already helped 3 other homeowners stand up to HOA harassment. The company that makes the dog cameras actually contacted us about doing a promotional campaign. They want to market them as security cameras that walk themselves. We turned them down. The dogs are already spoiled enough without becoming commercial stars. As for Karen's old house, it was bought by a lovely retired couple who have become great neighbors. They actually thanked us for standing up to her, saying they had dealt with similar HOA bullying in their old neighborhood but had been afraid to fight back. Last week, we got a certified letter from Karen. I was worried she was trying to cause more trouble, but it turned out to be a court-ordered written apology. It was pretty obviously written through gritted teeth, but the judge had required it as part of her probation violation sentence. The letter included this gem. I acknowledged that my actions were inappropriate and that I had no authority over your property. I regret any inconvenience my behavior may have caused. My wife had it framed and hung it in the workshop. I've learned a lot from this whole experience. Standing up to bullies isn't always easy, but it's necessary. Documentation is absolutely crucial. Without those security cameras and saved letters, this could have gone very differently. The biggest lesson, though, sometimes the best revenge is just letting karma do its thing. Karen's own actions led to her downfall far more effectively than anything I could have planned. For those wondering about the legal bills, the HOA's insurance ended up covering most of it after they admitted Karen had been acting outside her authority. Plus, the civil judgment more than made up for our out-of-pocket costs. These days, our property is actually featured on the HOA's website as an example of a good neighbor relationship. They use photos of our workshop to show how non-HOA properties can coexist harmoniously with the planned community. Pretty ironic considering how this all started. I still keep the security cameras running and the dogs still wear their GoPros on walks. Not because I'm worried about more HOA drama, but because it's become kind of a neighborhood tradition. Plus, you never know when you might need to prove your side of the story. Oh, and one final bit of karma. Karen's condo, it's in an HOA that's even stricter than the one she used to run. Last I heard, she's already gotten 3 violations for unauthorized garden gnomes. Sometimes the universe just has a perfect sense of humor. Edit 2. Holy cow, this blew up even bigger than the original post. Thanks for all the awards and support. To answer the most common questions, yes, we've added even more security cameras. Better safe than sorry. No, Karen hasn't tried to contact us directly again. The restraining order is still in effect. The dogs are doing great and love their jobs as neighborhood watchdogs. Several other HOAs in the area have used our case to reform their policies. I'll update again if anything major happens with the embezzlement case. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I, 30SF, have been a people pleaser to a fault my whole life. I have been working in marketing for 10 plus years. Over the years, I've had my fair share of bosses who were good, average, and some who sucked. There is one in particular that stood out as awful. This story is from about 5 plus years ago. Pamela, 40s, not real name, was the VP of marketing and sales for a mid-size retailer. She started at the company a few years after I did, and if rumors were true, she was the 4th pick for the position and was simply hired so the company could appease shareholders. I was a manager under her, and my whole job was to make sure the website and stores had their products merchandised properly, received all their monthly sales materials, managed advertising, set up and managed the department's budget, PM'd all department projects and operations, created reporting to reflect sales, managed presentations, creative briefs for future projects, etc. In short, I did her work and all the administrative grunt work to keep the department afloat. I managed all this because I had access to her email and many times sent emails on her behalf to keep the department functioning. Pamela spent most of her time showing up after 10 a.m., taking business lunches, and planning company parties. Don't even know why we did those, but I planned those too. I consistently questioned why she spent so much of our budget on these events when we didn't have the budget resources for any of it. Pamela told me to take from future months' budgets to pay for the current month's overspending. So at the start of every month I had an original budget, and by the end of the month I had to turn in an edited budget, edited under Pamela's direction, that made it look like Pamela's spending was under control. This is important for later. I definitely made mistakes here and there being in charge of so many tasks, and constantly found myself working 12-hour days, split between being in the office and working after my kid went to bed. Weekend work was also done before my family woke up and after they went to bed. During Pamela's first major holiday season, sales were shit. Pamela kept changing her mind on the visuals for the stores, kept bringing on new advertising and PR agencies to bring in sales. All these agencies consisted of her personal friends, and ignored our buying, merchandise team's planned promotions for her own better ones. At this time, I had been dealing with an ongoing infection that turned to sepsis and was hospitalized. The doctors and my husband said it was due to the stress of work and that I needed to take a break. As I recovered, I realized how much I was hurting myself, my family, and even the company I worked for. Eventually, my old habits got to me, and I got on my phone and checked mine and my boss's emails. What I found made my blood boil. First, I got a lovely bouquet of flowers from upper management wishing me well, and I knew that Pamela organized the delivery. She sent me her favorite flowers. I went to her inbox to put the receipt in the correct folder to send to accounting when I got back. At the top of her inbox from the past 3 days were emails clearly not related to business. What I found in her emails was Pamela emailing her personal friends griping on how I can't just shake off sepsis and get back to work. She also complained that she couldn't find any of my notes, spreadsheets, or documents for any of the work she was technically in charge of. They were on our shared drive labeled very clearly. Finally, I found an email where she sent a friend from a previous company asking for advice on how to bring in sales and save her job. In this long thread, this old colleague asked if there was anyone managing most of the work, and of course Pamela said I was. This colleague explained that clearly it was my mismanagement that was causing issues, and that I could be blamed if sales didn't pull through by the end of the season. Pamela mentioned that I was in the hospital and repeated comments from her other email thread. This person said that she couldn't outright fire me because it could seem like retaliation because I needed to take emergency medical leave. But if Pamela could prove I was stealing from the company or misusing company resources, then she would have grounds to have me fired and use me as a scapegoat. Upon my return, Pamela called me into her office and said she was worried I was taking on too much and wanted to take work off my plate. She announced was taking managing the department budget off my plate. She asked me to only drop of a small stack of invoices to accounting. Additionally, Pamela told me under no circumstances was I allowed to talk to accounting about anything regarding budgets. Also, if I had any concerns about the department or workload, I wasn't allowed to go to HR. I had to discuss it directly with Pamela. Oh yeah, I could see where this was going. Unfortunately for Pamela, I had built a rapport with Lois, 50s, not real name, who was our main accountant. Lois always said that she would do everything in her power to help me should I ask. Knowing this, I grabbed the stack of invoices off Pamela's desk to give to accounting. I also added the email threads I read while I was in the hospital and the current unedited budget that Pamela hadn't touched yet for the month. I also found in my filing cabinet the hard copies of old budgets with Pamela's handwriting on what numbers to change to balance our budget. Finally, I added an email from our first round of budget adjustments where Pamela's subtlety threatened to put someone else in my job if I couldn't do what she asked. So I walked and dropped off the invoices to accounting when I bumped into Lois. She brought up invoices and I sternly looked at her and said Pamela is the only one in our department that Lois is allowed to talk to about our budget and invoices. Lois saw the suspiciously thick file folder on her desk, gave a firm nod, and lovingly kicked me out of her office. Within the week, Pamela was fired. From what I understand, she has been continually job hopping for the past few years. The CEO and HR brought me in to personally apologize for everything I went through and gave me a paid 1-week vacation to take at my discretion. Given other issues with this business, I left after another year, which brings me to today. I am, once again, a manager for sales and marketing. I have a wonderful boss, Mike, 40s M, who trusts my business decisions and backs me up on practically everything. We are hiring my team for me to solely manage and direct. Today, I looked through the applicants and found Pamela's resume sitting among dozens of others. I stared at her name, wondering how many other people share her name. Upon review, yep, it's her. She definitely fell down the corporate ladder, with VP of our old company being the highest title she earned. And, to no surprise, she embellished her achievements, claiming the work I managed as her own, and claimed she generated an 87% sales growth during the holiday season at our previous company. As a people pleaser who firmly believes in giving everyone a chance, it has never been so satisfying to click disqualified. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.